Okay, some of you might not know this lady. She's Janet Kuypers. She's run a bunch of poetry shows over the years in Chicago. She runs her own press. She's been a great editor. She publishes a couple magazines. She's been featured all over the place. She sings, she dances, she does amazing things. You what?
I dance?
Yeah, you dance.
Well, not for you.
Okay. Okay, fine. You won't dance with us tonight? Maybe she'll dance for us tonight. Who knows? Who knows what this woman will do? She's one of the, she's like a poetic actress, I guess. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Janet Kuypers.
Yeah.
Welcome home.
Hi, thank you for the welcome home, and I've got a poem.
How did the tennis stuff go?
Stanza break from Jerry. There's a page at the end of a stanza break for a Jerry poem that is on speed.
I just put it there, and I'll pick it up when you're done.
That's not
Sorry.
a problem. Just didn't know if you knew it was there. How was the tennis? It was groovy cool. Did anybody here go to the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana?
No.
No. I thought somebody waved. Well, Team World for tennis had a guy from South Africa who actually went to U of I, which is where I went to school, and there were a lot of people in the audience that were going, ILL, INI, doing college stuff, which was really hysterical. So, but that's all I'm going to say about tennis. That is that. Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. I am thrilled to be here. Does Jen have the train sounds going? He's all cool? Oh, he's setting it up with the stereo.
It's set up, I can start it anytime.
Awesome. I would like to share with you a bunch of new and old poems, varying things for you. And the first ones I wanted to share with you were actually from past shows that I had done in Boston. And a couple of them appear in this book. As I had said before, Pharaoh means show poems. I've got 2 copies available here right now if anybody is interested in the copies. But this first poem is called Only Choice is to Build. Walking through ruins, she saw desolation. She saw how people were saddened, ashes were over everything. She walked through the rubble, reached her hand in, pulled out 1 brick, dusted it off. Everything was saddened, everything was ruined, and she saw this brick. And she thought, what can I build? You think it's over, but this is your chance. Let's start anew. Let's start from scratch. Let's make this world as we see it could be. Thank you. Somebody said autumn poems, and so I'm going to have to do 1 autumn poem for you. That's because I love John. And it's also in this book, Fairview Show Poems, and it's called Marry You in Autumn. When I fell in love for real, he then said to me, I want to marry you. I want to marry you in autumn, when the leaves are changing and the weather is perfect. I felt the enchanting changing. Transformation. When he said to me, I want to marry you in autumn. I was sitting at a bar while John was eating casserole of ribs before coming here, and I read this to the bartender, and she got a real kick out of it. So I'm going to share with you. This is called Violations Tested. Was driving to meet someone with so little time off for lunch. It was running late, still a few miles on this one stretch of 120 to their office. So, although the sign said 30, I went 55, following a cop speeding down the street. So after about a mile, that copper then turned on his lights and signaled me over. And he walked over to my Saturn, asked me if he knew how fast I was going. And I replied, saying, "I don't know. I was just following you, sir." And I waited. Because if he wrote me a ticket, then he would have a record that he was speeding while not in pursuit. If he wrote me a ticket, his faults would be found, and all cops want to think that they're invincible. So, after he looked at me, he finally said, after looking at me for like more than a moment, he said, "Watch what you're doing, and watch your speed in the future." That's all he said. And I nodded very subserviently. "Yes, sir," and I, a little bit slower, went on my way. Thanks. For a women's issues feature I did at the High Faith Center, 1 June, I did this piece called "Echo in My Mind." I can't make it taller. This is called "Echo in My Mind." The thoughts of these women, the visions of these women, the legacies of these women, they echo in my mind. I think of the woman who, in her youth, led armies to battle and saved her country. And for this, she was burned at the stake because she was a woman and she had beliefs. I think of the woman who wore a black dress as the bride in her wedding. And no, it's not because she's goth like me, but because she had work to do, and she didn't want to get her white wedding dress dirty. And yeah, she had work to do. She was discovering things scientists take for granted now. And she was discovering things no man had yet chanced to wrap his head around. I think of the woman who lived at a time when she wasn't allowed a higher education, and so she studied for free, and she worked for free. And while she did this, she made amazing scientific discoveries until she escaped Germany days before Adolf Hitler would have put her in a concentration camp. She carried a friend's diamond ring while trying to escape in case she needed to bribe someone to allow her to pass. And after her drive, after her work, she gave the world Nobel Prize winning collaborations, despite the efforts of the Third Reich, and despite the patriarchy all of her life that thought, she's just a woman. She doesn't need to learn. I think of the woman who was in the first wave of women allowed to have a higher education, but still, she left her communist home. She was searching for freedom, and she started a life on the other side of the earth, because after what she learned, she knew that understanding philosophy could really set her free. I think of the woman born not far from my home. She studied music, but wanted to share her story of life as a woman with the rest of the world. And through her journeys, she'd stay at a tribe where prisoners armed with lawnmower blades broke out of their jail cell, while all she could do was wonder, wait, and listen out into the jungle. During her travels, she took air-mail airplanes until she was dropped off as far as she could before completing her solitary journey to the North Pole. As an artist in residence for NASA, she learned of how men, during the Cold War, thought of setting off nuclear bombs on the dark side of the moon. Of course, only a man would think of doing that. But when she was in a protest about economic exploitation of women and the treatment of women as animals, giving flyers of images of chicks, bunnies, foxes, and pussycats. And she even said that, quote, "For every $1 a man makes, a woman makes 63 cents. Now, 50 years ago, that was 62 cents. So, with that kind of luck, it'll be the year 3,888 before we make a buck. And I think about what these women say, and I think about what these women mean, and what they say. I could just go on and on and on. But tonight, I've got a headache. Thank you. All my life has always been about you. What do you need? What do you want? How can I help you? What can I do for you? And now, for once, I start to live, and now you tell me that I'm thinking about myself too much. And I think about all of the things I've done for you, and all the time I've spent with you, and all the care I've given you, and now you tell me that I'm thinking about myself too much. And I've cooked for you, and I've cleaned for you, and I've made sure that everything made sense in your world, and now you tell me that I'm thinking about myself too much. And now all I can really think is that you're only angry because I'm thinking about me at all. Thanks. I believe our lovely host, Dave Getchik, had some of these chapbooks of mine, and the last I saw, they were piled up in another area, and I don't know if you have those chapbooks, my darling.
No, I don't have those chapbooks anymore.
Did you give them all away?
I gave them all away.
Awesome. I didn't know if it was done. Because I like to print things, I tried to print a couple copies of what I had, and I, not made of paper and can make them for everyone, so I hope a couple of you got that, and I hope that's cool, and I hope you like it. This next poem, last year for is my angel leaving? Oh, she's living here with me. I gotta have her come on. Oh, this is my the polar dive. I did the polar dive while I was at the Southern Ocean because I said, okay, people do it here. I might as well do it while I'm at the South Pole. And I had to get a shirt.
So that it would have been like a really warm sweat.
Well, you don't wear it while you're diving. You're in a swimsuit. I didn't wear this while I dove into the ocean, no. Anyway, but that's my shirt. Anywho, because I was tired of showing my ribcage to you. Anyway, this next poem I wrote last year. It is in this book as well that I shared with you before. For National Poetry Month, I did a feature of a bunch of erasure poems, which is you take a document or a speech or something well-known and you erase parts of it and you come up with something else. This was also published in a found poetry book from Lamar University very recently, and it is called Erasure Poem, One of the Most Hated Women in America. These are chosen words spoken by Casey Anthony after she was charged with the murder of her infant daughter, Kaylee, for which she was later acquitted. I don't know if you guys remember this story. So these are some of her words. She keeps a lonely, guarded life now. In her words, I was in confinement for 23 hours a day, for weeks at a time. In her words, my sentence was doled out long before there was a verdict. Sentence first, verdict afterward. Guilty long before a day in court. In her words, she does not have a significant problem with not telling the truth. In her words, I hate to say this, but cops believe other cops. Cops tend to victimize the victims. I see why I was treated the way I was, even had I been completely truthful. Cops lie to people every day. I'm just one of the unfortunate idiots who admitted they lied. In her words, I don't give a shit about what anyone thinks about me. I never will. I'm okay with myself. I sleep pretty good at night. Thanks. And a short one in honor of our host, Dave Getchik. Why be a carpenter and build your own cross when Walmart can do it for you. Selling mass-produced 2-foot-tall wooden crosses with glued plastic flowers to hammer into dirt at roadsides for accident victims. Why be a carpenter and build your own cross when Walmart can do it for you? Dave Bishop, thank you. I had to do that. I had to. This is a poem about relationships, and it's called Being God. I'm tired of dying for your sins over and over again, and why is it that I am the one that's doing all the dying and you're the one that's doing all the sinning? I don't think you're learning your lesson. I'm tired of taking this knife to my hands over and over again, giving myself the stigmata, and the blood gets all over my clothes, and I can never get the stains out. And for what? For you to see how I suffer? I'm tired of being humble when I'm supposed to be the one with all the power. Over and over again, I become your servant, and never are you bowing to me. I don't even get a thank you. I'm tired of preaching to the converted. Well, the converted aren't even really listening. They're snoring in the back rows while I deliver my sermon, and there's not even air conditioning in here, and I'm sweating. I'm tired of coming to you and healing the sick, taking away the problems over and over again, giving you something to look forward to, and all I have is an eternity of waiting for someone to take my place and tend to my wounds. I'm tired of giving the earth up to you, watching the devil's work be done. And you know, he's just sitting down there and looking at me and laughing over and over again because it's so easy for him because he doesn't have to work. I'm tired of being your salvation over and over again, and you turn to me, and I have no one to turn to but myself. That's a bitch, you know, being your own God, since no one can save me from me. I'm tired of being your teacher, handing you what you need on a silver platter and waiting for that damn collection plate, and someone is always stealing from it out of the back row. I know who you are, you who leave me nothing. I'm tired of wearing this crown of thorns over and over again, and the needles prick my skin, and even God's bleed. At least this one does. And when I ask you to wipe the blood out of my eyes, well, I can't see you anywhere. I'm tired of being something for everybody when everyone is nothing for me. Maybe the devil has the whole idea, you know. Maybe I'll sit back and wait for you to miss me as you wonder, who's your Messiah now? Thanks. A couple people told me they liked this piece of prose and a short piece. It's called Evolving, Connecting, and Confounding. It concerns me when I see toddlers vying for their mommy's attention, yelling to get their mom to look up from their smartphones. It confuses me when I hear that the IBM Corp, the company that invented the PC, has decided that all of their employees should use Macintosh computers. Riddle me this, Batman. Explain to me why the new decrees for the IBM employees should now use Macs. It condemns us all when I see ads on TV of a hero fighting enemies, killing people, and escaping certain doom before saving humanity until the PlayStation logo appears, followed by the words, "Greatness awaits." It confounds me because greatness awaits for those who didn't just sit on their comfy cushions and play video games. Heroes are those who don't just sit back, they act. They don't escape their reality by playing games of an alternate reality. They make their lives great. So, yes, for all you console junkies out there, greatness still awaits. It consumes me when the town I'm from, the city I love with the best architecture, the best skyline from the water, and wait a minute, the best tasting tap water too, the best blues music, the best cultural mix. It consumes me. It consumes my soul when the mayor calls Chicago a sanctuary city and further restricts gun rights for those who would legally use guns. Unlike the gangs who, in Chicago over Christmas weekend, shot over 60 people. Of course, there were innocent bystanders. It concerns me. It confuses me. Confounds me. It consumes me. This is commonplace. This is a part of what they call evolution. Or maybe it's how the culture evolves, by staring at screens with all the surface information they could ever need or want at their fingertips. Or maybe it's how the culture devolves, by not having to remember anything, because you can always have Google out there on your phone of yours that's smarter than you. So you can just stare at a screen instead of actually interacting with other people. Because why would you want to interact with people when you can look at a 4-inch square screen instead? I went to a bar and I saw two men together at a table, both using their smartphones instead of interacting with each other. But wait a minute, isn't the actual point of going out in public to meet someone in the first place? Isn't the actual point to actually interact with them? Because this bar, this publican, was a place where people went to meet with each other to interact. But this past New Year's Eve, at a bar on Rainy Street, a group of people went to a bar to ask if they had TVs so they could watch sports games. You see, now the Publican has become a place where people can all pay attention to anything other than the people they came with, or anyone else for that matter. This is your new future. Because I remember back in the day when me and my friend Jason, we had our laptops at a bar with a bunch of friends, and we would actually transfer files to each other by putting the laptop sensors in front of each other. So yeah, we were still being computer geek stuff that was going on there, but at least we were in public and we were actually interacting with actual people while we did it. And this is how we were cutting edge, and this is how we were being rebellious, and we were all doing this without actually losing our connection with people. We look for a happy medium. I'm the woman who was an audio and video sampling artist for all of my performances, the one with my own name as a domain name, tons of CDs on iTunes, who runs an expansive online print publishing organization. I'm incorporating YouTube and Vine videos back in the day, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even Pinterest, Tumblr, and Google+. But I don't know how many times I've been still called a Luddite because I only recently got a smartphone, and you know, no one ever calls me, so what am I missing out on? Because maybe the problem is trying to come up with that balance. With this ever-expanding technology crammed down your throats, we've been forced to feel that we need, sure, we can always want to have the latest and the newest. We can forget that our phones used to cost less than $20 per household per month because we always want to give up something and have something more. We think we can have it both ways as we welcome the new millennium, and maybe the real key is to remember to strike that balance so we don't lose what we loved about the past while embracing and throwing our arms around the future. The future is ours. We just have to look before we leap so that we know that we'll land on our own 2 feet and always land on top. Thanks. My brother passed away last year. He was going through trouble, and we only found out later, and I wanted to write this for him. It's called Only Half the Story. He was a troubled man. He had a good life, but let demons in to do him in. In his struggles, he almost died a number of times. And even his family pushed him away and only heard news of his death after he was already cremated. And it makes me wonder if our love for him ever completely went away. Because after all the mistakes were made, I want to believe that he's worth more than what his demons reduced him to. I want to remember that when I worked retail, he bought the biggest teddy bear through me when he had just found out that his wife was pregnant with their first child. I suppose it was a fun way for me to get the news, too. I want to remember how he'd come inside after plowing too many streets to count that were filled with feet after feet of snow, that little icicles would be hanging off his mustache from his breath. I want to believe, I want to remember that he had done these things. And one time, I want to remember that after he had come to pick me up at an airport, he decided to pay the airport parking machine with pennies, dropping pointless pennies and laughing at repurposing pennies that were only wasted space in the trash ashtray. I want to remember that a friend from his youth, who was shorter than me by the time I was 12, that his friend decided that my nickname would be Shorty. I want to remember how I'd see him swim, and he'd wear these tiny Speedos. And that might seem strange, but he got a college scholarship for this. He was a near-Olympic diver, watching his competitions with medal winners like Greg Louganis. And he'd go to the diving board, and suddenly this concrete construction company owner sprung with such skill as he flipped through the air before making the tiniest tear and splashed next to nothing through that sheet of water that could shatter like glass through the sky if anyone else tried the same dive other than him. You see, I want to remember these little slices of his life, these windows into his acts of kindness, how he was the kind of guy who'd want to give the shirt off his back to a man in need. I want to remember this because I want to believe that he wasn't always lost. I want to believe that even though he erred, we should no longer condemn him, but condemn the thing that did this to him. So I try not to remember the demon, but remember the man inside. I want to believe, and this is why I must remember. Thank you. I have one more I'd like to share with you, and if you're wondering why I'm wearing silver lipstick, I happened to release in June the 25-year anniversary issue of CC&D, which is the 25-year anniversary is usually silver, and had the silver to do a shining cover for that. And this poem that I'm going to read to you is from a show, from the last Baha'i Faith Center show, and it is also in this book. And thank you guys very much for listening. This poem is called Only Voice He Could Hear. When I was 10, I was the queen of Hawaii in a school play. Other students in my court would all kneel around me. Then dancers entertained us, all while I sat on a throne. I took advanced classes, was a tough 10 speller, could even spell the longest word in the English dictionary, pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. At this point, I thought I could do anything. So I learned a little French, but I don't know, I must have missed my petit déjeuner because I was feeling a bit peckish and wanted something more. I joined choir. I even sang at my graduation ceremony with classmates before I went to high school. Because at the ripe old age of 13, I wanted to live by those words we had sung then. Climb every mountain, forge every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream, until you find your dream. Before the final graduation ceremony, an older man in a suit emblazoned with medals and ribbons from the American Legion came to the stage to award one student in the entire school with the American Legion Award, which seemed at the time the highest honor anyone could ever achieve. And when they said my first name, I wondered, there's another student in the school with that same name. How did they win? Because I couldn't believe it when they said my last name as I walked onto that stage to get my medal from what I was sure was the nicest man I had ever met in my entire life. Once graduation ended and I saw my family, my father said to me that I was the only voice he could hear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Jessica, thank you, my darling. Hello, each and every one of you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And you know what?
Yes, sir.
Buy a book from this lady.
I've got a number of books that have just come out. I released a bunch of books for this place that everybody can hear about, and I didn't get to share any of them with you. So I'll drop some of them down. Based on suggestions from other people, I have a collection book of poems over the years, along with interviews and journal entries, starting from my first television station appearance interview in 1990. It's called In Depth, and actually, there I am in silver again on this one, because I seem to be all about the silver, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. And
Silver and gold,
Silver and gold, and with CC&D magazine, there are a collection of books of appearances from the Boss Lady, from poetry, volume 5. This is called On the Edge. It's got a bunch of poems in here, and this one is only, that in-depth one is only $10. This one, you can see how huge it is only $12. I've got copies in my hand here for anybody who might be interested. I've also got 2 performance art books based on the chapter 18, 28, 38, 48. This is chapter 48, volume 1, which has got the coolest skyline shot of Chicago I think I've ever seen on it. In Chicago, with actually flying away, because some of them include shows that happen in Austin, Texas, chapter 48, volume 2. These 2 massive volumes are also only $12 each.
Oh, and take a look at CC&D magazine.
Yeah.
It's been around forever.
Sherry
What does
Perdiccas
that
has been
stand
it.
for?
What?
What does that stand for?
It's actually named after a poem that talks about the dysfunctionality of children, churches, and daddies.
A long time ago, I saw this bizarre magazine called Children, Churches, and Daddies, and I said, this person has to be a right-wing weirdo.
And I would get snail mail letters from people. Hi, I'm a Christian mother of 4, and these are my rhyming poems. And I'm like, that was wrong. So it's got to be the unreligious, non-family oriented literary and art magazine. And we take poems and prose and artwork, and people have had interviews.
Stories?
Yes, that was the prose part. Yes. And nonfiction and all that stuff. And so, if you want to know anything about it, as I mentioned before, http://scars, SCARS.tv, because we all have scars.